Good evening, everyone. This is High Point Mayor Jay Wagner calling to order our High Point City Council meeting for Monday, August 21st. I want to thank everyone who came out to the meeting tonight and everyone who is listening online. We really appreciate the involvement in local government. And I'd like to begin the meeting by asking everyone to please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda is our consent agenda. It appears, kind of count them up, there are 19 items on the consent agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the consent agenda items?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second. Okay, so motion made by Councilman Hudson, seconded by Councilman Moore to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. By the way, for those online who are not here, for those listening online, all members of council are present here in the council chamber. All right, so now we'll move to our general business agenda. The first item is the consideration of the sale of 150 megawatts of generation capacity from NC Municipal Power Agency number 1 to Central Electric Power Cooperative Incorporated. And Tyler, I believe I will be recognizing you for this portion of the agenda.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tyler Barrier with your Electric Utilities Department. The item I have tonight is a follow-up from a previous meeting we had on August 7th where the sale of 150 megawatts of excess generation capacity from our Catawba nuclear plant is up for sale. This consideration is made to Council to adopt the ordinance which will amend our purchase power agreement with the agency. If you'll know, as you all know, we're one of 19 cities that is a Agency 1 member, and I've got CEO of Electricity's Roy Jones here to present a brief presentation about the sale.
Thank you, Tyler. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well. This is going to be some of the key highlights from the presentation that we covered with you all a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to hit some of the high spots in the presentation. Certainly feel free to ask questions as I'm going through the material here. As Tyler said, you all are one of 19 members of North Carolina Municipal Power Agency number 1. And as through the Power Agency, we own 75% of the Catawba Nuclear Station. It's a fantastic facility. It's been running for us for about 40 years now. And the current license runs out to 2043. And we're very cautiously optimistic that we're going to get a license extension sometime in the mid-30s, and the life of that plant will be extended out to 2063. Over the years, for the last 40 years, when the 19 communities bought into the Catawba Nuclear Station, the projection of what the load growth was going to be never materialized. And so as a result of that, we had a whole lot more base load nuclear capacity and energy in our portfolio than we needed. And that's still the case today. We've got a lot of excess baseload nuclear. You know, if we was designing the perfect portfolio today, we would have a mix of base, intermediate, and then some peaking for those hot, summer peak days or those extreme cold winter days. And we've got way more base load in our portfolio than we need. The way I think about it is if you got a 401k and you've got fixed income and some equities in it, you want to make sure you keep that in balance. And our portfolio from a power supply perspective is out of balance. Over the years, we've looked for opportunities to right-size our portfolio. We've been unsuccessful in doing so after several attempts, but late last year, we had an opportunity. Central Electric Cooperative down in South Carolina has got 19 members, just like Agency 1 has got 19. They got 26 members, so it's a very similar type of model that they've got down there in South Carolina serving the cooperatives. So they're building out a portfolio right now. Santee Cooper was providing them with all their power, and so they've kind of started to pull away from Santee and building out their own portfolio, and they're wanting to put some baseload nuclear energy in their portfolio. So we looked at the economics of the opportunity, and the economics proved to be very beneficial to the 19 communities. And so we started working, and we've got 150 megawatts, which is the excess capacity that we've got that we don't need. And so we found that to be the sweet spot for what we were going to offer them, to sell them. And in doing so, we even projected out through 2043 and beyond to make sure that we weren't going to need that in the future. While we need capacity in the future, we don't need baseload capacity. We need that intermediate and that peaking capacity that's much less costly. So we did enter into an agreement to sell the Central 150 megawatts, which represents 18% of the Agency 1's ownership share in Catawba. They're going to receive 18% of the output, which is 150 megawatts, but they also are going to pay 18% of all the cost, capital, fuel, operating, Dukes A&G as they operate the plant, decommissioning. So all the cost, they're going to pick up their share as though they were an owner of Catawba, even though they're not. They're an owner on paper through this PPA. So if the plant runs, they get the output. If there's an issue at the plant, they don't, but they still pay, just like the 19 members do today. Same arrangement. So the Power Agency and Central executed this PPA on June the 5th, and one of the conditions proceeding in that PPA was all 19 city councils has to approve this transaction, and it requires unanimous consent of all 19. If one says no, then this transaction does not close. You all probably know of one of our members that had lots of questions about this transaction. They spent a lot of time on some due diligence, hired an external consultant engineer, an external attorney, and they met today at 3 o'clock, and they unanimously approved this deal. So just wanted to pass that along to you all. As we look at the economics of this deal, when we look at, we call this our reference case. So this is when we take our cost projections, and we update these every year when we do our rate work in March and meet with the Wholesale Rate Committee. We put together our best projection of what it's going to cost us to operate the Catawba nuclear plant. We call that our reference case. And so we ran that case as though we continued to own the facility, and then we ran a case where we sold Central 150 megawatts, and we shifted 18% of those costs to Central. Well, what's that mean to the 19 communities we serve? It's going to mean at the wholesale level an immediate 15% wholesale rate reduction. And from $1 savings, it's going to save the 19 communities $377 million from the period 2024 to 2031. Now, what's magical about 2031, that's when the agency's debt gets paid off. So when the debt gets paid off, we don't have that debt service payment anymore, but we got all the other costs. So when you look at the analysis from 2032 to 2043, which is the current license, it would cost the 19 communities $123 million more than it would have otherwise. But when you look at it in total, over the remaining life of the plant through 43, from 2024 to 2043, the 19 communities are going to save $254 million. And we went ahead and ran it and said, well, what if we get that 20-year life extension? What's that mean to it? And you can see here, even over the life of the plant, it still saves our communities $173 million in wholesale power cost. We then said, okay, well, let's run a case where let's put together a model and run a lot of different simulations and see, let's stress test some of these key assumptions. So it's called a probabilistic model, and we ran 5,000 different cases, and we stressed some of the key variables. What if capital's higher? What if the plant doesn't operate as expected? What if the excess energy that we've got, we sell it into the wholesale market and make more money off of it? So we stress test all those key assumptions and then looked at, okay, now what's the mean of those 5,000 cases? And you can see here, even under those stress tests, the 5,000 cases, it still results in a 15% reduction. It actually, those cases actually show the savings is a little bit greater, $378 million. It also shows on the back end that 2032 to 2043, that the loss there is only 120 million versus 123. And then once again, over the life, 258. So very similar results. Now, what's that look like graphically? So when you take all 5,000 of those cases and you stack them up from, the deal looking very good, which is over to the far left on the blue bars, the -8. So there were some cases that said we're actually going to save more than what we're projecting to save. The dotted line in the middle is the mean or the average of those 5,000 cases. And then you can see our reference case where it sits relative to all 5,000 of those cases. You come over to the x-axis, to the 0, and you see some cases over to the right that are in red. Well, those are the cases that said it would not be a good deal. We'd be better off keeping that 150 megawatts and not selling it. Out of the 5,000 cases, 83 of those cases gave us that result. And you can see the range of those outcomes, anywhere from, the cost being slightly higher to up to as high as maybe 4% higher. Out of 83 cases, that was the result. So when you take all this information and say, well, what does that mean? Well, after running all 5,000 cases, it tells us that we have a 98% probability of being glad we sold the 150 megawatts versus having kept it ourselves. The key here is clearly we're diversifying our portfolio. We're shifting some of that nuclear concentration risk to a third-party person that's going to have to pay for the plant. It's a take and pay, not take or pay. So that means they're going to pay. Now, what's that mean to High Point? This is the slide that I know everyone in the room's interested in. For you all, from the period of 2024 to 2031, the savings to High Point is projected to be $88 million in wholesale power cost savings. That's the 15% reduction. Over the period of 2032 to 2043, y'all's costs are going to be slightly higher. It's going to be $28.4 million. So it's higher cost during that period of time. But then when you look at it over the 2024 to 2043 period, the city of High Point is going to save, as you can see here on this slide, $58.7 million. Now I want to stress again, that's at the wholesale level. You all will take that savings, and then you all will look at your residential, commercial, industrial rates, look at some of the infrastructure resiliency projects that you're doing in the community, and y'all will make the best decision that you all can about how to best use this $88 million of savings here in the first 8 years. From a percentage basis, you can see here, we're talking about $12.7 million in the first year of savings to High Point. The 15.5% would be y'all's share of those savings. So that's just in year one, and these savings will continue year after year all the way through 2032. Looking at this graphically, what we try to do is we look at what if Duke Energy Duke Energy Carolinas was serving a wholesale customer like Agency 1, same load factor, 19 members. What would that look like? Well, that red line represents what Duke would charge an entity to serve them at the wholesale level. The solid blue line is our cost and our cost projections of what it's going to cost the 19 members to continue to buy out of the Catawba Nuclear Station and some of the other assets we own to round out our portfolio. We see the big drop in 2032. That's when the debt's paid off. So you see the big reduction there, and then you see costs are pretty stable. out after the debt's paid off. Because at that time, we're just spending money on capital, fuel, O&M, and the plant A and G. If we do this 150 megawatt sale to Central, the blue line with the circles is where our power costs are going to go to. So that represents that immediate 15% reduction, that immediate savings, and the immediate $88 million of savings to you all. Well, it goes along till 2032, and you can see the lines cross over. Well, when they cross over, that's that period of time where you saw that negative number that said we'd be better off keeping the plant than having sold it. Well, you can see how close the margin is between, I'll call it our reference case status quo, and the 150 megawatt sale case. Now, I've talked about we've got more baseload energy than we need. We've got a trading floor, and we're selling into the wholesale market every day, every hour of every day, because we got more than we need. In the wholesale market, we're getting out there in the market between the 3 and the 4 on that y-axis, meaning we're getting about $30 to $40, 3 cents, 4 cents a kilowatt out in the wholesale market. So you can see we are getting a significant increase in what we're able to sell this energy for out into the wholesale market. The way I look at it is it's a hedge. It's a hedge against the surplus energy market. We still going to have our trading floor. We still have surplus energy. We're still going to be selling. But this is a fantastic hedge to lock in some margin here. So that's the results here. Be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Floor is open for questions.
Roy, could you go back to the slide number 6?
6.
I think it was 6, maybe 5.
That's
Where you had
6.
the 88 and the 54 million.
I'm sorry?
Where we had the 88, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it was 5.
That's right there. Yep.
It's about 7 years. I mean, it's an interesting point. I just, if you're talking about saving 88 million and then losing 28, if that was 2 years apart, it's one thing. When you're talking about nearly 2 decades, the value of 28 million, the value of 88 million is going to differ quite a bit based on inflation, rising costs. So.
Well, these are cumulative present values. So we took our cost projections of what it's going to cost to operate the plant through 2043, and we took the revenues that's going to be required through 2043, and we brought all those dollars back to today's dollars. So when you're seeing these numbers, they are brought back in today's dollars.
Okay.
Yeah. And everything was included in those projections. We've got a decommissioning trust fund that's got about $370 million in it. We're investing it with the state treasurer so we can earn a greater rate of return, but that money's got to be there per the NRC to decommission the plant when the license extends, when the license expires. And so all those projections like that are included in all of these numbers.
Roy, just for the public as well, could you explain that this is a sale of excess, a portion of excess power capacity?
That's correct.
That we're not selling base load? Can
No,
you just,
yeah.
can you just elaborate that on
Sure,
that a little
yeah.
more?
So when you start to try to look at building generation to serve load, you've got load that's there 24/7, 365 days. It never goes away, and the load never, ever, unless you got an outage, the load never drops below that level. That's considered the base load because it's going to run around the clock. And so you build out that portfolio with an asset that's designed to run around the clock. In the case of Catawba, it runs full out around the clock. The only time it comes offline is every 18 months for a refueling outage. To refuel the reactor core with new fresh fuel, you take the older fuel out. So that's our base load. Then we start talking about the next tranche of generation is typically natural gas. It's from a combined cycle unit. It's designed to come on and off and operate almost every day. So you bring it online, you run it, you shut it off at night. You bring it online the next day, you run it. Well, as you get into the summer months like now, there may be periods of time where you bring it on Monday and it stays on around the clock till Friday, and then you take it off over the weekend. In extreme hot days, like we had a few weeks ago, then you put peaking in your portfolio, and those peaking units can almost be started instantaneously with the push of a button. So within the day that you're in serving load, as your load changes over time, because your air conditions are running or whatever, at the peak of the hot summer day, you start those peaking units and they come online, they run for a few hours a day, and then you shut them back off when the load comes off. So when we are designing a portfolio, you're designing to that type of duty, if you will, on a generator so that it can operate and stand up to that duty. Well, we've got about 250 to 300 megawatts more base load in our portfolio than we need. It's been that way for decades. And so we're out in the market selling it because the unit's running. We can't not take the energy. It gets produced because it's a nuclear unit, it's base load. So we got a little trading floor, and we're constantly selling that base load energy out into the market and getting the revenue from it. And the revenue we get then goes into helping the amount of revenue we have to collect from the 19 cities. So it reduces what's required to be collected from them. So that's how the communities have benefited from that revenue. Well, this transaction is going to allow us to bring even more revenue in to help even better reduce the cost to the 19 communities. That's where this 15% reduction in cost, the $88 billion of savings is coming from, because we're bringing in more revenue than what we're going to bring in, selling it out into the wholesale market. Make sense? Sort of, kind of?
Roy, could you elaborate a little bit on the hedge?
Sure.
Can you explain how that will benefit other
Yeah.
than just locking in
Yeah.
the rates?
Yeah, so as I said, so our 250, we'll just say 250 megawatts of excess base load. So with our trading floor, there's obviously a forward natural gas market out there, and there's also a forward power market out there. So we've got a trading floor, and they're looking at the forward gas curves, they're looking at the forward power curves, and when we see prices that are higher than what we budgeted for, that we think we're going to get, we go ahead and sell that, right? We'll sell that into the forward market, either a quarter, half a year, up to even a full year. So we're locking in margins that we're happy with because they're exceeding our budget. So we take that volatility out. It's literally, of the $250 million, we generate in the wholesale market about $35 million a year. That's on average. That's what we generate selling this excess. Well, when we see prices that go up, we're going to go ahead and lock in that 30 to 35 million a year. This transaction is going to allow us to lock in basically for 150 megawatts, this is going to allow us to lock in $56 million a year. That's what this is doing. $56 million a year, we're locking in, and now we're going to sell the other 100 out into the market. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to make a motion to approve 2023-394.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just say that I've got a few phone calls about it. I say this council's done a great job with multiple presentations, looking at all the data, all the research. And it's been said we don't have a crystal ball, but I have confidence that this council's done a lot of due diligence on this, and I feel comfortable supporting it.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, if I could chime in.
Yes,
Also want to
Councilman
note a big thanks to Randy McCaslin, who's a former employee here, former deputy and interim city manager, who I know spent an incredible amount of time working with our city to make sure that we understand this. And Randy, thank you for that time, as well as other folks who have been involved. I think what I'm most interested in is how we look to diversify some of those power sources.
Yep.
Look to go as green as we possibly can go. Also appreciate that within your simulations, you include a pretty good margin there in terms of potential error on where power could trend. So we're doing our best to understand it. We won't know it for sure, but I think the homework's been done. We appreciate it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I do want to make a comment. So the Catawba, the 19 members of Catawba, we are already 98% carbon-free by getting that energy out of that nuclear plant, 98% carbon-free. Duke's got a goal to be 100% carbon-free by 2050. We're already there. Now, doing this 150 megawatts at 98% is going to go down to 92%, but that's still a fantastic story to be telling to the community and to the businesses in your community, not only the ones you've got, but the ones you're trying to attract. So you got a great story to tell, and we'll be able to make up, if you will, that difference going from 98 to 92, because we're out in the market once again buying solar, buying wind, buying poultry wrecks. We got another, our side of our company, that's what they do. So I hear you, but we just don't forget, we've already got a very nice portfolio that's taken us a long ways towards those carbon goals.
Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor, if I could, because it's been out in the public, it's been in the paper. We've been very fortunate to have Randy on the board. We've had a great relationship with Electricities, and we're also very fortunate to have former Councilman Latimer Alexander, who's worked on Electricities for us for several years. And Latimer has a differing opinion on this, but we certainly respect that and appreciate all of his efforts and continued work on that board.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is item G2, which is a public hearing regarding possible incentives for Pioneer Square Brands.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and managers. I am Sandy Dunbeck, Director of High Point Economic Development, and I, along with my colleague Montana Brown, are pleased to bring you a project tonight for High Point. This is a project that offers continued growth in South High Point and is involved in supporting the technology industry. With us here tonight also is Kevin Kulivar, Vice President of Sales of Pioneer Square Brands, and Mickey McGuinn, who is Director of People and Operations. We are asking tonight that you consider a request for authorization of performance-based incentives for this project at 721 Old Thomasville Road and 1515 West Green Drive in High Point for the amount of $54,752. The project, Pioneer Square Brands, was founded.
Can I just stop you a minute? Just for
Yes,
one
yes.
little point of order. The
Yes, I'm sorry,
the
public hearing.
is open.
Good, thank you. I'm glad you stopped me. Anyway, I don't need to do it over, do I? Good, good. Yes.
Andy and Megan are squirming in their seats.
They were waving,
Right.
yes,
Go ahead.
absolutely, absolutely. So anyway, Pioneer Square Brands, an excellent company founded in Seattle's historic Pioneer Square neighborhood. They are designers of brands and manufacturing, testing, and certifying rugged cases and accessories for mobile technology devices. The Vault, who's located here in High Point for many years, is known for product design, enterprise-grade mobile device protection, and a patented connectivity system. Pioneer Square Brands purchased Vault on February 12th, 2023. I believe I see Mr. James Cagle here, the founder of Vault. But together, these companies, Pioneer Square Brands and Vault, will have one of the most robust and flexible cable-free iPhone and iPad fleet management platforms in the industry. So the Vault location at 1515 West Green Drive would become the corporate headquarters for Pioneer Square Brands. In addition, the company, Pioneer Square Brands, is considering establishing a new warehouse for their East Coast operation, and High Point is one of the locations being considered. Some renovations are proposed to be made at 1515 West Green Drive, and the company is considering a lease at this 721 Old Thomasville Road. The investment numbers are $1,300,000 in new real and personal property, and the creation of 30 new jobs that would pay an average of $61,700. They cover a wide range of warehouse specialists, production assemblers, customer service, sales administration, fulfillment managers, HR, marketing and design engineering. The company is also considering requesting state of North Carolina incentives. So we are asking we are recommending that City Council consider authorizing performance-based incentives for this project in the amount of $54,752, which would be paid post-performance, and also that you consider authorizing the city manager to execute a performance agreement with the company containing benchmarks for the company to achieve and a schedule for the payment of such financial incentives. And with that, I will turn it over now to company official Kevin Houlivar. Get you going here. There we are.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
All right, good evening, Mayor, City Manager, and the City Council. Thank you, Sandy and Montana, for this, and Mr. Cagle for being here from the former owner of Vault. My name is Kevin Coulivar. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Pioneer Square Brands. And I'll give you a little bit of an introduction on who we are, why we're here, and why we're considering the growth in High Point. So with that, I'll move through, and then we'll have any questions at the end. So Pioneer Square Brands is the parent company, holding company of 4 brands. One is called Brenthaven. Another one is called Gumdrop Cases. If any of you have kids and they're in schools with a Chromebook, there's a high probability that it's a Gumdrop case. We're the largest Chromebook case provider in the United States. We have another company called TechShell, and then in February, we closed the acquisition of Vault here in High Point. And like I said, or like she said earlier, our roots are in Seattle, in the Pioneer Square neighborhood, and we're in the process of evaluating the move to High Point from there. We've closed our office there, created a design studio in Seattle, and are now leveraging the footprint that it's been created here in High Point for our headquarters. So at the end of the day, we really help schools and businesses protect mobile devices. So whether that's a kid learning or doing a paperless for maintenance and operations, or for any utility worker out in the field, that's the type of product that we build. So why High Point? At the end of the day, when we closed the acquisition of Vault, we really we saw that the existing relationship here with the community was really solid and really powerful. And it made sense for our leadership team to really consider moving our headquarters here to High Point. So, and as we grow, we really see the attraction of talent here. There's a lot of talented individuals and an opportunity to grow our team with the talent here in the area. And additionally, 3 out of every 4 of our customers is east of the Mississippi. So as we started to do an analysis of where our customer base is, it made a lot of sense for us to think about, hey, what if we acquired Vault? We've got a nice footprint here. It probably makes sense for us to consider being closer to serving our customers because of the proximity to the shipping ports, highways, and major airports. So as we grow and invest here, like I said, we've closed our official office in Seattle. We just have a design studio there. And we're starting to migrate quite a bit of that talent and a lot of that design and engineering and marketing and sales to the High Point office. Additionally, as we've moved forward with these investments in North Carolina, we're repatriating some manufacturing. So we have done some overseas manufacturing over the past 20 years, and we're bringing our 2 top products in the Apple world and the Dell world to North Carolina for manufacturing. So that actually accounts for about 60% of our business. And that's, we're really excited about the repatriation here and the ability to service our customers.
And then we've identified this location on Old Thomasville Road of about 35,000 square feet. And that would be a facility that we could leverage rather than having a 3PL warehouse in Reno, Nevada. So it's a pretty big shift from the West Coast here, and we're really excited about what High Point area could offer. So as you can see, the projected income, that's actually a typo up there, or the capital improvements is 1.3 million. And that's for a new warehouse and to continue to grow the headquarters. And what our anticipated plan is about 30 full-time employees over the next 3 years. So those will be a variety, I think Sandy alluded to it, is from marketing, sales, distribution.
That's only 300.
Yeah, it should say 1.3.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That was a typo.
It's a typo there. It
yeah.
should be the 1.3.
It should say 1.3 million, which is on the PDF file on the agenda. So these are the positions that we have listed. So we've got positions that we're recruiting for and wanting to bring in 2023, and then as you see through the rest of through 2025. So I'll hit the pause button there and see if you all have any questions or comments.
So you're saying you're bringing what percentage of manufacturing, global manufacturing?
Yep, so it's about, of 2 brands, it's about 60% of the volume.
And how long would it take you to scale to production capacity once?
So we've started the contract manufacturing here in North Carolina already, so we've already started that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much for considering
Right.
when I was able to be on one of the Zoom calls, and you know that the area, there's a lot of wonderful things going to be happening. And so we really want you to choose High Point to be your home and your new headquarters.
Right on. We're really excited about it, and it's a wonderful area, and we've really enjoyed the growth and the opportunity here.
I'll concur. I mean, repatriation of manufacturing is something very near and dear to my heart, so
Yeah.
thank you very much for that.
Right on. Thank you.
I just, how much of your sales volume is in the U.S. versus worldwide?
Good question. It's about 90 to 95% in the U.S. Yeah, we have an operation in Europe and Asia Pacific.
Do you see some expansion, some growth in those markets as well?
We're hoping to see some expansion into Asia Pacific as the education market there starts to grow. So they're, exporting, and we do some of that right now, but depending on how the market
Sure.
goes, we could see that
Oh,
grow.
it's exciting. Vault,
Yeah.
Vault's been a great corporate citizen and addition
Yeah.
to the creativity of High Point
Yeah.
and ingenuity. So,
Yeah.
and I don't have to say any more about my feelings about manufacturing. I think they're well known. So.
Yeah, right on.
Thank you for being here this evening. I think you said 3/4 of what you sell, did you say 3/4 of what you sell domestically or globally is take place east of the Mississippi?
Domestically.
Okay, nice.
Yep. A lot of local schools. You'll see a lot of our products in the area here. So, thank you very much for the time and certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so is there anyone who would like to be heard for or against this item? So please come forward to the lectern. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I will close the public hearing. And I'll open the floor to the council.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the incentives for this company.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I thought you were halfway through the sentence.
We're all waiting.
So there is a motion made by Councilman Jefferson. I believe it was seconded by Councilman Hudson for approval of this item. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, so next item on the agenda is item G3, which is to review some information from High Point by Design.
Mr. Mayor, I'll take that one. The requester has asked that this item be pulled from the agenda, and that was by Mr. Mike Peters.
Okay. All right. So, I don't know, do we have to have a motion to pull it, I guess?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, so we're just not going to consider that item. All right. I would like to, Councilman Jefferson is going to need to recuse from items G4 and G7. So I would like to move item G7 up and consider it right after G4, just so he doesn't have to run back and forth and we don't have to take separate votes for him to recuse. So we're going to do G4 and then we're going to do G7, and then we'll come back to G5. So with that, I will make a motion then to recuse Councilmember Jefferson from voting on items G4 and G7. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that item passes, and Councilmember Jefferson, you were recused from those two items. Okay, item G4 is consideration of a resolution approving interlocal agreement with Guilford County for American Rescue Plan Act funds. Is there any presentation on this? There's not? Okay. Well, then I will make a motion to approve that item. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, I think, just reiterate the fact that these are pass-through funds.
Yeah, these are pass-through funds from, I believe, from the county.
Yes.
to us. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Item G7 is the consideration of a contract with the YMCA of High Point in the amount of $500,000. This is for the out-of-school time social and emotional learning and enrichment physical activity program at the YMCA. Is there a presentation on this item? Nope. They're all the this is all the pass-through ARPA money.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure before I jump the gun. I don't want to be fire-ready aim on this. All right. So I will make a motion then for approval of item G7. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. And Councilman Jefferson is now back in the meeting. All right.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, officially. Item G5, we will consider next. That is the consideration of the contract with D-UP in the amount of $3 million. Again, this is part of the pass-through. I will make a motion for approval of that item. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. G6 is a consideration of contract with Hayden Harmon Foundation, the amount of $2 million. This is related to the bridge project, and it is another pass-through item from the county ARPA funds. I will make a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So now we're skipping to G8. This is council initiation of zoning map amendment. So Mr. Shannon will be coming forward to tell us all about it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Herb Shannon, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. At your August 7th public hearing, during the public comment section, Mr. Shipwash addressed the council, and he was requesting council initiate rezoning of land off of Bennington Street. That area has been flagged by staff to review as part of our comprehensive zoning map amendment project, but that area is not scheduled to be evaluated to another 2 to 3 years. He was requesting council push this up on the list. Your current round of items was approved in January this year. He's requesting the round 5 be, that listing be amended to include this area along Bennington Street for evaluation. Staff has evaluated this area and has no objection with you amending your current list to include Bennington Street. So the action the staff is recommending you to consider is amend Round 5 with a comprehensive zoning map amendment project to add this land area off of Bennington Street. If you are supportive of that, we will work with the applicant to bring something forward before the end of the year.
All right. Is there any discussion on this item?
Obviously, I talked to Donnie the next day after this, or no, actually the night of council when he came back. I know him through some family members. So what he's doing, he's done a lot of this affordable, smaller housing type options. And he does a good product, does a good job. So I told him if there's any way we could work with him to assist, we'd love to help.
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and then make the motion to approve the addition of this item.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second for approval of the item. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Everyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next item is item G9. It's public hearing on zoning map amendment 23-19.
Yes, this is part of Round 5 of the comprehensive zoning map amendment project. It's to rezone a 10.6 acre tract of land located at the northeast corner of West Lexington Avenue and High Point Wahlberg Road. This tract of land is in Davidson County, but this land was annexed into the city in 2004. At that time, there was a proposal to develop a townhome project on this site. After obtaining zoning approval, but before the actual plan, development master plan was recorded, there were objections raised from the budding property owner to the north. He had concerns as to the impact of stormwater runoff on several ponds he has. So he purchased the property to keep it as open space. It's been sitting out there with that PDL zoning. That's a zoning designation from the former development ordinance. And in part of this project, staff looked at this and say, okay, that's been sitting out there 20 years. The budding property owner purchased it to keep it as open space. So staff has identified this area for a change, and we're recommending rezoning to the R3 district. That is the predominant single-family zoning governing that area. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this request at their July public hearing and recommended approval, and has forwarded a consistency statement to the City Council for your consideration. Are there any questions on this proposal? Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing is open. Is there anyone else here to speak on this item? Okay, hearing none. I will make a motion then to approve this item, and I will adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement as stated in the staff report. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Public hearing is closed, by the way, and there's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. All right, next is a public hearing on Dawn Schweitzer Properties LLC, zoning map amendment 23-16. Public hearing is open, and Mr. Shannon will hear from you.
Yes, this is a proposal to rezone 2 parcels in the 2400 block of West English Avenue. The property is currently within the core city in the southwestern portion of the city, and it's currently used as a event center and art studio, art gallery. The property owner has 4 parcels. 2 of the parcels are zoned general business, which allows the use. 2 are zoned heavy industrial, which does not allow the use. She is requesting rezoning so that all of her lands that is part of her development are in the same zoning district to facilitate expansion. This site is next to that signalized intersection of 2 thoroughfares of Westchester Drive and West English. The land use plan supports commercial uses near that intersection. So staff is recommending rezoning of these 2 parcels. The area outlined in red is the parcels, that the total development. You can see the split zoning situation. This would bring all of that property under one designation. There's already a general business zoning in that area, so it's not introducing a use that's not permitted, that's already permitted in the area. The applicant did include slides of the existing facility out there, and she is working on an expansion proposal for that facility. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this request at their July public hearing and recommended approval of the rezoning request, and it has forwarded a consistency statement for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Public hearing is open. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, I will then close the public hearing, and I will make a motion for approval of this item, and I will adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement from the staff report.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve this item. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next item is item G11. This is zoning map amendment 23-17. Public hearing is open. Mr. Shannon.
Yes, this is a request to rezone a 8.7 acre tract of land just south of the downtown area along West Green Drive. The site currently has a heavy industrial zoning designation. This property was a former location of a lumber mill, if you're familiar with that portion of the city. The property owners recently purchased that property, and they have long-term plans for trying to develop an event center, manufacturing, warehousing, and possibly even retail use. They're in the process of doing a master plan for that entire development. They hope to come back within 5 to 6 years, but at this point, they want to use the site for manufacturing and warehousing. They're requesting rezoning from the heavy industrial district to light industrial. This is an area that staff has identified as a southwest area for our southwest area plan. Hopefully in a few years, we're starting that study. But based upon preliminary scoping, we anticipate a lot of the heavy industrial zoning for this area being removed, as that area, that district is for more intense type uses such as landfills, asphalt plants. And this area has been flagged as an area to consider for higher end manufacturing type activities. The applicant is requesting rezoning the LI district to at least start their initial phase of manufacturing and warehousing. And when they finish their assessment and evaluation of building in a few years, they'll determine if that current zoning will work for them or if they wish to expand activities. Staff is recommending approval of this request. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this proposal at their July public hearing, and they recommended approval and have included a consistency statement. I did get a call from the applicant this afternoon. They're based out of Chicago, and they were unable to secure a flight in time for the meeting. So they had noted their desire to work with the city for revitalizing this area, and they do apologize for not being able to make the meeting this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Hearing none. This is public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, I will then make a motion for approval of this item, and I will adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement as stated in the staff report. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to make a comment. I was able to visit their manufacturing facility in Chicago at the beginning of August, and a lot of what they're going to do there, they're going to do in this location, including a retail outlet store, and then right after and it's an area in Chicago that needed redevelopment. It was an old factory, and right across the street from it now is high-end multifamily housing. So it's nice to see, and I'm hoping and can't wait to see what that brings to High Point. So
Yeah, this project has great potential, I think, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with that site.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I feel like it should be noted, council made a very intentional effort to ensure that we could invest in small scale and advanced manufacturing, and that we in fact wanted to see a lot of these buildings along this corridor here be invested in, attracted to $20 million in the USDOT RAISE grant to help us bring some life back to that area. So it's so great to know when the public sector makes that investment that it makes the private sector want to then invest as well and create business and jobs and things of that nature. And so just tonight, we've heard 2 projects on West Green Corridor.
Yeah.
So I don't want it lost that the efforts of this council and what's being taken to invest in our city, we see folks invest back and partner with us. So it's a really good point to note.
Exactly.
Yes. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next item is item G12. This is another zoning case, zoning map amendment 23-18.
Yes, this is a request to rezone a 13.7 tract of land. This is southeast of the intersection of East Cheshire Drive and Centennial Street. If you're familiar with this area, it's just south of the Center Stage Shopping Center. The applicant's requesting rezoning to support a mixed-use development consisting of high-density multifamily and limited-intensity commercial use. To the north, you have that shopping center zoning, and to the west along Centennial Street, you have small-scale commercial. That's where you have the Sweet Shop Bakery. The applicant is looking to do multifamily to the rear of that, with the frontage along Centennial Street being for lower-intensity commercial uses. They're looking at a planned development district. Right now, the area is zoned as single-family and multifamily. They've requested rezoning to the planned development district to support this use. Where Track 1, they have proposed that to be developed to the RM 26 district standards, where they're looking at densities up to 26 units per acre, over 300 units. Track 2 is where the applicant's proposing limited business district uses. If approved, Woodside Drive would be abandoned and a cul-de-sac would be installed to provide access. They're also looking at an access point off Centennial and 2 access points to the south. The planned development district is intended to provide innovative land and site development. It offers quite a bit of flexibility. It's intended for multiple uses, not just for single use. In return for that flexibility, higher development standards are proposed. With this request, key items we would like to point out, the zoning site does abut high-intensity commercial uses to the north. This would act as a buffer or transition between that commercial development and single-family development to the east and south of this site. Although the planned development district does offer a lot of flexibility, it also stresses protection of existing neighborhoods. So within 50 feet of where this site abuts single-family zoning, building heights are restricted to 50 feet to ensure that compatibility as far as use and scale. Also, where multifamily uses abut single-family, higher landscaping standards are also required. A key item to note regarding this site is it's on the outer edge of this neighborhood. However, the way the applicant's proposing design is that there will be no direct access to the single-family neighborhood. All vehicle access will be either from Centennial Street or from Bookcrest Avenue to ensure compatibility. So there were some concerns. Staff have received calls from neighbors. Is this going to be a cut through to this area? No, the way that it is planned, that master plan is binding as far as access point, there would be no cut through the abutting residential neighborhood. Our land use plan does support a situation where you have multifamily uses acting as a transition between commercial corridors. And with this site being right next to that signalized intersection, this request is addressing the policies of the land use plan. Finally, I would note with this request, land use policy is proposed to be changed for this site. Where you would have, from our land use map, local convenience commercial is to be extended all the way along Centennial Street. That area in blue is proposed to change the land use designation to local convenience commercial. And to the rear, where it has medium density and low density, this would change the land use policy for that area to support high density residential uses. This request is consistent with the goals and objectives of the land use plan, and staff is recommending approval. This item was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their July meeting, and the commission recommended approval and has forwarded a consistency statement for your consideration. Are there any questions of staff at this time?
Questions from staff? Thank you, Ms. Shannon. I believe the applicant's representative, Mark Isaacson's here. Mark, happy to hear from you.
It's the same thing we talked about. While those are being handed down the dais, just introduce myself. I'm Mark Isaacson at 804 Green Valley Road in Greensboro. I'm here this evening representing Brian Craven and his family, and probably most importantly, Mr. Craven's mother is here. So Their family's owned this property for almost 100 years, and Mr. Craven's grandfather started assembling properties in this area in the early 30s. And as you all may know, this property has been multifamily for many decades. And as owners, the family determined that with the growth in the area and the demand for housing in this area along Centennial, that it would be a good timing to invest in redevelopment of this site as an infill project. And so we have brought before you the rezoning request that Mr. Shannon has explained and outlined to you. I've handed out some materials, some of which are duplicates of what you all have seen and heard. The first item is the zoning map, and I think the point here is the mix of uses in the area existing already, a mix of commercial, low density, higher density residential, and institutional. And with the activity across Eastchester and in the area that you all are probably familiar with, we think it's a good opportunity and a good time to redevelop this particular property. Next is an aerial view of the site, a collection of properties, and as Mr. Shannon explained, located along Centennial at the intersection with Beaucrest, but there would be no cut-through traffic there. All the access would be directly from Centennial or directly from Beaucrest. And so the aerial view gives you a better perspective, I think, of what's going on in the area. Next item is the illustrative sketch plan, and this, I think, illustrates the points that we've been making. There are substantial buffers between this property, the improvements, and the adjoining properties. And we have limited the access points. We have oriented the buildings and the parking to take advantage of the configuration of the property along with the limited access points. Next is an illustrative rendering. So there is that corner parcel that Mr. Shannon mentioned that we have reserved for limited business purposes. And this is an illustrative rendering of another property that Mr. Craven's been involved with. We think this may well be professional offices or something similar to serve the area, serve the neighborhood and the growing mix of uses in this corridor. Finally is a copy of a letter we sent out. We did have a neighborhood meeting a couple of months ago. I think 4 or 5 people showed up and expressed not much in the way of concern, just more questions about what's going to happen to my property and is my access going to change or the intersection with Centennial. Those were the types of questions, and I think we assured everyone there what our plans were and what was likely to happen here if this is approved. There was one speaker in opposition at the lower level hearing, and that really was a concern about water runoff. And in the interim time, Mr. Craven and she have had several discussions. I think we addressed her concerns, and of course those kinds of concerns will be addressed through the TRC process. Quite frankly, the only issue that came up in the several discussions we had with staff was about a sidewalk that is being requested by staff to connect the property at the cul-de-sac that you saw to Centennial. And we're in favor of pedestrian connectivity, but we are concerned, and our engineer was concerned about a zoning condition requiring that we install a sidewalk across somebody else's property. And there are some unknowns there. For example, our engineer pointed out that there might be utilities underground that would have to be relocated, or other topography or erosion control issues. So we worked out some language during the public hearing that says, in effect, that we're required to install this sidewalk across the Sweet Shop property, but only if the technical review committee finds it in their reasonable determination to be feasible to do so. So we have kicked that can to the TRC, and we'll certainly go through that process. But I guess I just wanted to note it for the record with council that if we run into some issues there, we may need to revisit that condition. But we're big fans of pedestrian connectivity. We want to have safe access for our residents here. We just have some, I think, legitimate and reasonable concerns about building something on someone else's property to connect to this property. So trust council can understand our concern there. Otherwise, I believe everything has been lined up well for your consideration, and happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions for the applicant?
Mark, what's the, how many units are we talking about? How many potential units are we talking about?
How many what, sorry?
Potential units are in this.
How many
site plan.
units? It would be around 300. Yeah, around 300.
Okay,
That's right.
that's all I need.
If I could, Mark, I want to make sure you and your client are pleased with the wording of the document that's being reviewed by the TRC concerning the sidewalk.
We find that wording of that condition acceptable. Yes, sir. Thank you for asking.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Eisen.
thank you.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will then close the public hearing, and I will make a motion for approval of this item and adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement as provided by the staff. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Williams. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. There's one item, and I believe Councilman Johnson has indicated he would like to add an appointment
Yes, sir.
to the agenda, so I'll make a motion then to suspend the rules to add I believe it's a Human Relations Commission.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
To add another appointment to the Human Relations Commission to the agenda. Is there a second? Second. Okay, so there's a motion and a second to suspend the rules to add that item. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Councilman Johnson, go ahead.
All right. Jack Coble. You stand, all right, you weigh in, okay. Council, I would like to appoint or recommend that we appoint Jack Coble to the Human Relations Commission.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item?
Question is he replacing someone that just came off the commission?
He is.
Who is this replacement of?
That is, how you pronounce her name again? Tasia.
Oh, Tasia.
Yes.
Yeah.
We actually just put Tasia on there, but some things have changed in her life, so we do need to replace her. So.
All right, any other questions or comments?
But I'm glad to see definitely Jack wanting to serve the city, so, and definitely a young man, so glad to see that. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. So then last on our agenda will be item G13, which is the consideration of these various appointments to the Human Relations Commission. I believe it's 3 different folks, and I'll make a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Anyone have anything to announce prior to adjournment?
I just have a question. Did the Cravens bring anything from the sweet shop out in the lobby?
We were contemplating that.
Oh, okay, well, thought I'd check.
We didn't ask,
Deliver something, it's always tomorrow.
Okay.
we didn't ask before, that way it's not considered bribery.
Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize a longtime friend and executive, Dr. Talisha Roberts, who has just been appointed to the Human Relations Commission. She moved to High Point not long ago, and immediately, first thing she said is, "What can I do?" And so those are the types of attitudes and that we want in our city, and thank you for being available, and thank you for being willing to serve.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, you're actually my appointment, and more likely, you're probably like my last appointment as home. Don't let me down.
Looking forward to working with you.
Okay. Anything else?
I'll say from Dale Richardson that since Fred almost started a riot at our meeting last month saying that he got free bubble gum, as a child, many in the room didn't. Dale says there is now a bowl of free bubble gum if anybody'd like to stop by and make up for years lost.
There's Britt, always causing positive change.
Exactly. Positive change. Okay.
Mayor, if I can.
Yes.
I wanted to just say one quick thing, just a couple of, and forgive me, it's just something I want people to pay attention, because it's been kind of quiet. I know this, we're in the election season. I think we got like 24, 25 candidates. I know one dropped out, so 24.
24.
So just wanted to give a few points to the community. One, make sure you have a plan to vote. Please do me a favor and make sure you have a plan to vote. You know, there's some laws that have been changed, and I think everybody needs to make sure that they reach out to and talk to anyone who may not fully understand that. So please have a plan to vote. And the second point is, have an understanding of the powers and limitations of a municipality, please. Because there's a lot of people that really don't understand exactly what we can and can't do. So make a point to learn that. Talk to your social studies teachers, civics, whoever, or just look it up. But it's important that you understand that. And the third part is, we got 24, 25 candidates applying for 9 positions. So it's important that you understand those first 2 points, so that you understand what these people say on council. You have a better understanding if they actually, you know, it helps you discern the difference between a candidate who can, even though it may be ambitious, can give you real practical, in reality-based platforms versus those who give you, I don't know, champagne wishes and caviar dreams up there in the candidacy. So please make a point to learn those, understand your candidates, and vote both times, but more importantly, vote every time. Thank you.
Hey. Can you clap?
Are you sure you don't want to run again?
Chris, you about to announce something?
See what you can say when you're not running? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Second.
No motion.
A motion, yeah.
Motion to adjourn and a second.
Second.
All